Hi everyone, welcome. I hope you're all doing well. So we are in the middle of April right now, and what I'm going to be covering mainly is the conjunction we have coming up on the 21st of April, which is with Saturn and Rahu, also known as the North Node. Now this is probably the most profound conjunction we're going to have this year, because it's a very rare one. It happens once in a decade. The last time was in 2013, and that was in Scorpio, which is all about death, rebirth, transformation. And this is now in Pisces. It's going to be on the 26th degree of Pisces, and Pisces is about enlightenment. So an interesting cycle we're going to be stepping into. Now, before I jump into what we can be expecting from that, I will also be covering, just going back a little bit, in April, what we've seen throughout the last couple of weeks and how this is leading up to understanding what this conjunction is going to mean for us moving forward. Now, before I jump into that and all the good stuff, I would just like to say, especially if you are new here as well and you're unfamiliar with my videos or the way I work, hi, welcome to my channel, Reunion Within. My name is Lisa. And I'm not your astro weather girl. I don't give you all the latest transits every week. There's amazing astrologers for that do a great job. So you can, find that in many places. But my videos, as much as my videos are mainly astrology based, I mainly use astrology as a tool to back up what energy I'm tapping into in this present time. So it's what I'm feeling, it's what I'm witnessing, it's what I'm seeing. And what I do is I feel into that, and then I look at the astrology to see how it correlates with everything that I'm seeing. So in a way, it's a little bit of a reverse. Of course, I know what's coming up with the astrology, and yes, I do use it to look in advance, of course, because astrology is a powerful tool, and we want to be able to use it to our advantage. But my main purpose for using it is for healing purposes. So what I do is I like to see and feel what's going on. I am a psychotherapist. That's my main job. That's what I do. So I work with a lot of people throughout the days and weeks, and I pick up the energy of everything that's going on around, and I can see the correlation between what I'm seeing and the astrology. So I don't have a schedule of when I do my videos, I don't have set times and days. I really just do them as and when I feel guided, and I feel that there's an energy that's playing out that I really feel is quite important to talk into. So my videos are with the intention to help empower people, to bring clarity, insight, and wisdom. So now we've got that out of the way, let's jump into the good stuff. Now let's back up a little bit, right? And have a look at the beginning of April, what's been going on. So on the 3rd of April, we had Mercury conjunct the North Node, Rahu. Mercury is the planet of communication, and it's the messenger, Hermes, right? And the nodes are the nodes of fate. It's the karmic axis of our chart, so it's very fated energy. So we could have been experiencing over the last couple of weeks some very fated messages through synchronicities. As Carl Jung would say, meaningful coincidences. So look back, what's been going on? Have you been having reoccurring dreams? Because dreams could be something that's really significant at this time, because it's in Pisces. This happened on the 27th degree of Pisces. And Pisces rules the dream state, the unconscious. So, I would say journaling, especially even now, keep a note of what's coming up for you or things that you're seeing, these synchronicities, because they're definitely most going to mean something. I know for myself, the last week I have been having different dreams, but it's the same theme. And the theme is that I'm back in a situation that I left a long time ago, but I'm back there feeling frustrated that I'm stuck in it. And in my dream, I feel like there's no way out. But what that's really telling me is that there's always a way out, because I'm not actually there, right? So it's kind of, I think, reinforcing that, and knowing, that deeper knowing that we always have a choice, okay? And it's about finding the, I guess, the information we need, the resources we need, which again is Mercury, and looking out for that. Because the information is always there, you know, whatever we need, we have access to it. We just have to have the eyes to see it. Now, on April the 7th, Mercury turned direct at 26 degree Pisces. So this is a kind of momentum ahead now of seeing things a little bit more clearly. You know, we've still got a while to go, still in shadow. However, things are just feeling a little bit more clearer now. And this is where those synchronicities or those dreams or those conversations or messages might just start making a bit more sense now. Okay. Now on April the 12th, Venus went direct at 24 degree Pisces. So this is about, now we have in this time been going very, very deep, thinking about now what we want to reconnect with, where we have gone beyond these false desires that maybe we thought we wanted or had, and now seeing something new for ourselves. And maybe thinking about things in a way that we've never felt or thought about before. So that leads on to Venus conjuncting Saturn. Now, this is also very important because this is the third one that we've had this year. The first one was the end of January. We had one, I think it was the 7th of April. And we're having another one now on the 25th of April. And this third one we're having is now, and this is in Pisces, is now kind of saying, right, we've done this. You know, Saturn is about really getting real and seeing the truth of things. So it's okay, you know, what choices have you been making? How can you see the truth of where you are at and what you're in and what you want and what you don't? And it's going to become a lot clearer to us at the end of the month where we stand in all of that. However, just because we become clearer in what it is that we want to commit to now, because Saturn is about commitment, it doesn't mean it's going to be easier. And so there is an obstacle to work with when that comes up, because now we have to create the change of what we now want to step into. And that's the initiation that this third conjunction of Saturn and Venus is going to be asking from us. And on the 21st of April, we are going to be having that Saturn and North Node Rahu conjunction, and this will be at the 26 degree Pisces. And all of these all of these transits I've spoken about in April, it's all between that sort of 24-27 degree of Pisces. So there's a lot of Piscean energy here, so it can almost feel like we've been kind of trying to, you know, keep afloat and kind of need to keep coming up for air, because it can be overwhelming. Now, if you don't, or if you're not used to this kind of Piscean energy, of it being very internal and a bit, maybe as some could call, you know, airy fairy and a bit ungrounded, and you know, all these emotions bubbling up, then I feel for you, right? Because there's a lot that's been coming up. We've had a lot of this energy, and Yeah, but don't despair, because in May things will get easier and you will be able to gasp for more air for sure. So just hold on in there. But anyway, this is a very powerful conjunction. This is two karmic forces coming together, and they mean business. So for anyone who isn't familiar with what a conjunction is, it's when two planets come together. And so when these two planets meet, there's an emerging of the energies of the two planets. Okay. Now in Vedic astrology, a conjunction is classed as planets that are in the same sign or house, whereas with Western, more modern astrology, we see it as a conjunction that is within a 10 to 12 degree orb. All right. So just thought I'd throw that out there so you can play with that yourself and see what you notice and what you are experiencing with conjunctions. Now Rahu, the North Node, is known to magnify anything that it is near. So Rahu now and Saturn coming in conjunction is going to magnify very Saturnian energy. Okay. Now Rahu is associated with not particularly liking rules and regulations. It's known to have a very insatiable, almost obsessive energy as well. It's very can be very impulsive and quite quick, and likes. It's also linked with sort of material desires as well, but also spiritual growth too. Because again, it is trying to push us towards where we're heading, right? Now in Vedic astrology, we have planets that we see as friends, enemies, or neutral. So certain planets are friends, some are enemies, and some are neutral. And Saturn and Rahu are known to be friends, which is great. But logically thinking about the energy is what most people associate with Saturn, which can be about restrictions and delays and responsibility, accountability, and being patient as well. So it's not a risk taker as such. And Rahu being insatiable and taking risks and sudden events and doing things quickly, in that it just wants to go towards what it wants. You'd think, why are these two friends? Well, that's what we're going to be diving into now, which is very interesting because actually they are working very well together. Now Saturn can be, or is known as, the planet of karma, but all planets are carry karma. They're all interwoven, and it's the chart as a whole that represents our karmic journey. But Saturn is it represents the karmic justice. So it's about taking the responsibility for the choices that you've made, the accountability, and for where you are. So it highlights that to us. So it's not that is just the planet of karma, it's that it represents the justice of the karmic road we're on, in a way, the journey we're on, kind of almost keeping us in check, should I say. Saturn is also known as the Lord of Time, which is why sometimes we feel we need to have patience with Saturn. It teaches us patience, and for a good reason as well, which I will also go a bit more into in a bit. But Saturn is also self-realization, because within that we can understand ourselves a lot better, which is what the karmic justice is all about, keeping us on track and following our true destined path. And now it's meeting with the North Node to help us understand what this is. Not many people like to hear a Saturn transit coming up. It's something that we can associate with setbacks and lessons that need to be learned, or some kind of isolation, right? But it's about seeing it from a different perspective. Now, when I was younger, when I was in school, I must have been like 7, 8, 9, that sort of age. I remember being at school, and the topic for that term was space. And we were learning all about the planets, and I was so excited, and I loved every bit of it. And I remember thinking that my favorite planet was Saturn, the planet that most people dread. But I liked Saturn because it was different from all the others, because it had the ring around it. And interesting enough, it turns out that my Atmakaraka, again in Vedic astrology, your Atmakaraka is the planet with the highest degree, and that is known as your soul planet. And Saturn is my Atmakaraka, it's the highest degree in my chart. And for anyone who doesn't know, and also again, if you're wondering, when I make my chart interpretations, I use tropical Western astrology, but I also bring in my knowledge of Vedic and evolutionary. So I kind of dip into all of them, but when I'm drawing my chart analysis, it is whole sign Western astrology. But anyway, the Atmakaraka, okay, so for anyone who's interested or isn't familiar with it, it's known as your soul planet. So it's what your it's going to be the most profound planet in your chart, because you've come here to learn these lessons to do with this particular planet. But it's also the planet where you have the most experiences in, if you're thinking about previous lifetimes, experiences that you've had. This is the planet that you are most familiar with and the lessons that it comes with. So the easiest way I can explain it is, imagine that you have a PlayStation and you have 5 different games, and there's one game in particular that you like to play. And because you play it so much, you're really good at it and you're much better at it than all the other games. But just because you play that game and you're really good at it, you haven't quite reached the highest level. You haven't mastered it yet. And this is a game you really want to master. That's your Atmakaraka. So anyway, thinking back to that ring around Saturn, that is symbolic of boundaries, and we know that Saturn is all about having those healthy boundaries, okay? And in therapy, we could symbolically relate this to what psychoanalyst Winnicott and Wilfred Bion called holding and containing. So Winnicott's idea of holding is, which again, think of the ring around Saturn, is that the therapist can hold the client's pain and anguish and confusion and demonstrate back that these feelings are tolerable. That they are, they can be managed. They are in fact intolerable, rather than how the client would perceive them as being intolerable, which means that when a client finds their feelings intolerable, they are likely to suppress and avoid them. We now can help the client understand that it's tolerable for those feelings to be addressed, be spoken about, be felt, be there. Okay. Now, with Bion, his theory of the containment, so the container and the contained, is a therapist acting like a container. So containment may be described as the ability to stay with the suffering of the client or with another. So the therapist acts as a container. And so what then happens is the therapist can then re-represent them back in a way where it feels more manageable for the client, so they can now process it all in a different way, which now becomes more manageable for them, whereby now the client can start to develop self-regulation. So symbolically looking and thinking of Saturn's ring, that's kind of acting as the container for us, the most honed in those most unbearable thoughts, which is why Saturn can be linked to our fears as well. But what Saturn does is it gives us that space and that time that we need, which is why everything feels like it comes to a halt. It's, it's stagnating, or it's being delayed, but it's actually giving us that space to be able to understand our fears and be able to process them in a way that becomes more manageable and much clearer for us. So Saturn and the North Node, Rahu, are asking you to course correct. So if you go back to 2013, which is the last time they conjunct, think about around that time, that year leading up, and around that year, what was coming up for you that maybe a decision that you had to make, something that felt like it was pushing you in a different direction? Did anything change? And it may have seemed, you may not think of anything drastic and big that changed your life in that moment, but there may have just been something that you decided to do or not do, and looking back now, it actually had quite a big impact in how that changed your life. And I know for myself, at that time, there was a decision that I made that logically made no sense at all. Okay, and I felt compelled towards making this decision, and logically, like I said, it didn't make any sense to make it. Everything was saying it's probably not a good idea, but nevertheless, I still felt that making this decision, there was something about it that it didn't feel that it would unsettle me. It didn't feel unsettling, shall I say. It felt like there was peace that would come with it, even though logically it made no sense. And that's where we need to be right now. That's what we're trying to understand, and that's why Rahu here, the North Node here, works so well with Saturn, because it's about knowing what it is that we deeply want on a soul level, but knowing that we have the power and the responsibility to take action and do what we know is right for us. So what may seem reckless and even stupidity to some people, for someone else will feel like peace. And moving into areas now of what I want. What is it that I really want? And the node here is helping us to tap into that without thinking about just what is going to logically make sense. Okay. So it's a healthy dose of logic with intuition, creates really what we want and putting us on that right path. So again, look out for these synchronicities. As Carl Jung, described it as meaningful coincidences. They're not just random events, but they have meaning and the underlying connection between them. So thinking back to my own decision that I made, around 2013, that was, looking back, the best decision for me that I could have made, which did push me towards where I needed to go. So even though to everyone else it may not have seemed very logical, it was, however, the right thing for me. Sometimes we get too caught up in trying to understand our feelings by thinking about them, but we can't think our feelings. We have to feel our feelings, really get into just what does it feel like? And that's going to tell you a lot. So that's what you want to try and do now, especially with then the third conjunction we're having with Saturn and Venus. on the 25th of April, which again is going to be about really what do I deeply desire, what does my heart, my soul deeply desire, where do I want to go, and really feeling into that. You know, what Saturn is trying to also let us know, that even when we feel like we don't have a choice in a situation, we always have a choice. And that is part of our free will. That is part of karma, that we do always have a choice, even if those two choices are ones that neither we want to make. You know, that saying, the lesser of two evils. But nevertheless, it's still within our power to make that choice for ourselves. So Saturn will put that restriction and that boundary and make things maybe feel delayed, or that there's setbacks and some frustration with that. But it's really there acting as that boundary, the holding, the containing. And it's not to restrict you of your freedom, but it's to help you find the capacity to find it. This is why Saturn and Rahu work well together, why they are friends. We have the freedom of choice to make the decisions for what we want and where we are. So good luck, guys. I wish you all the very best. Until next time, sending you so much love.